Jason White, as Sam says. I'm one of the HPE-AMD Alliance Managers, so I'm the Alliance Manager in the UK. We have other guys around the world aligned to the AMD portfolio, so I'm wholly focused on our HPE-AMD portfolio. So I just want to kick off to start with a kind of bit of an introduction around our partnership with AMD. And then I'm going to hand over to my my colleague Tony from AMD to talk you through the specifics around the technology from the processor perspective, and then I'll take you through our portfolio and some of the advantages and competitive information. So Sally, if you can just move forward to the next slide. Thank you. So we've been partners, foundational partners for quite a number of years. You can see on this slide, 16 years going on now. We see a lot of change in the microprocessor industry at the moment. Over the last decade or so, there's not been much performance gains around single-threaded applications. And so it's opened up the market to a lot of other vendors out there. AMD, obviously, one of the big ones, along with Intel. But you'll see, we've got options around some of the other manufacturers that are out there. But from an AMD perspective, I joined Compaq in 2000, so it was just Intel at the time around our Compaq rack-mounted servers. In 2004, you'll see there we launched our partnership and our relationship as very much a foundational relationship with the Opteron processor that came out. You can see there we had two models from day one in 2004, the DL145 and DL585. Just to give you an idea, back then in 2004, the 145 was an Opteron 250. It was single core. Can you believe that? So single core. Memory was up to a mighty 16 gigabytes. And you could get the storage up to 320 gigabytes using 260 gig ATA drives, if you remember those. So anyway, through the years, through the Opteron era, as we call it there, a lot across the bottom, right from Generation 1 through to Generation 8, over the years we've brought quite a number of models out. You see the middle photo there in 2017. This is when AMD came out with their EPYC processor. It was the first generation, codenamed Naples, which Tony's going to go into. On stage there is Antonio Neri, our current CEO, with Dr. Lisa Su, the president and CEO of AMD, launching the new EPYC processor on stage together. It really was a game changer. It's a multi-chip processor, real differentiation to what Intel still has in the market at the moment. 2019 is when the next generation came out. That's Mark Potter, our CTO, so Chief Technology Officer, again on stage with Dr. Lisa Su, announcing that new second generation Rome processor, right up to 64 cores of capability. And again, a big game changer in the number of cores and the performance. And we were the first OEM vendor to launch product right at that time, back in August last year, with our DL325 and 385 Rome capable servers. So we've been together with AMD right from the start. It is very much a foundational partnership. We test the processors for AMD and provide feedback and work on features together. So at this point, I just want to hand back to Tony, or over to Tony, should I say, to go through some of the key benefits of the AMD EPYC processor. Tony?
Thanks, Jason, and good morning, everyone, and thanks to Sam and West Coast for the opportunity to speak to you today. And again, as the slide right from the beginning said, I'm actually aligned to HPE. So I work within AMD as a business development manager, working to support HPE to bring their products to market, essentially. And I guess I'm biased in that respect, because I think HPE is the strongest OEM that we have. And also when it comes to the channel, and West Coast is certainly a very strong partner in the UK that we obviously work very closely with. So what I wanted to do really to start with was just to provide the value proposition, which you can see on the screen from an AMD EPYC perspective. I wanted to cover just a brief overview of the processor portfolio, AMD's position when it comes to performance, especially when it refers to workloads, customer workloads, because that's obviously important. and really address the question, will AMD be around in the future? I know that's a question that that gets raised on a number of occasions. Obviously, we came out of the market, we're now back in, but I want to provide some confidence and trust and reassurance that that certainly is the case, not just by saying it, but just really giving you an overview as to how the industry has changed. So first of all, the proposition, I would say, and it's a very simple one. First of all, we have a no compromise single socket server. Customers no longer need to buy two sockets, two Intel processors, when a single AMD processor will provide equivalent performance, if not better, without any compromise. So without fewer IO slots, without less memory bandwidth, and less memory capacity. So you can do everything in a single socket. And certainly when that comes to software applications that are licensed by socket, then it becomes quite a powerful story for your customers. And then on the second side, on the second part, the leadership around dual socket. So again, you've got twice the performance essentially in many ways, two socket to two socket. And I'll show a slide that shows the performance leadership that we have over our competition. And both of those technologies are supported by advanced security features as well. So Jason will cover some of that security a little bit more in depth a little bit later on, but there are embedded security within the processor, the AMD EPYC processor, that provides additional security that customers would take benefit from. So next slide, please. So again, it's not an AMD presentation without the portfolio. So this is the AMD processor portfolio. You can see it's, for those that are not aware, it stems from 8-core right through to 64-core. I think the key points that I want to bring out in this is that we do now have high clock frequency processors. They are denoted with a 7F variant, so they will be high frequency. So you can see an 8-core, 16, and also 24-core on the slide. The other thing that I want to bring out is the fact that we don't penalize customers, whether they choose an 8-core or 64-core. The features are supported across the board. So we don't differentiate between each of those. The same features are supported. And we've got many features that are listed on the left-hand side around simultaneous multi-threading, etc., the PCI lanes, the memory bandwidth I spoke about. So they're all supported. And last but not least, the variants that have got a P at the end, they are our single socket processors. You will see those in the ProLiant DL325. It enables us to provide, I would say, a lower price point for those customers that want to deploy a single socket system. Now, those processors are identical to the non-P variants. However, you can't put the P variant into a dual socket system because the Infinity fabric that connects the two processors together is fused and therefore is not, it doesn't work. Next slide, please. So Jason referred to how the journey has taken us. We brought out Naples, our EPYC Generation 1 processor back in 2017, and now we've gone to the EPYC 2, second generation EPYC processor, codename Rome. And as you can see there, what I wanted to depict is where EPYC is extremely strong. Certainly in the first generation, we had good coverage from a workload perspective. Many of the customers that I've spoken to that have deployed Naples were extremely happy with the performance, very impressed with the performance that we brought out with that first generation EPYC processor. And as you can see, when we launched with HPE, obviously back in 2019, you can see the number of workloads that increased that took advantage of that EPYC processor. So the coverage is very, very wide. From an enterprise perspective, I would say pretty much all workloads work very well, but it's down to application certification. And that's probably the areas that we're working on at the moment to actually get more and more of those, I would say, niche applications certified on AMD EPYC. And I'll give you an example. SAP HANA, for example, isn't yet certified because I think everyone that's in the industry understands that that's a very long and also very costly certification to do. So we are working on that, but that's not currently there. But suffice to say, have confidence that the customers you're speaking to will take a lot of benefit from AMD EPYC on HPE servers. Next slide, please. And this is the one slide that I wanted to show. We've got an equivalent slide that compares 2-socket AMD EPYC with a 2-socket Cascade Lake or Cascade Lake refresh. This is showing single socket to single socket comparisons. And for those that have been in the industry for some time, there are industry standard benchmarks that customers typically put into RFPs, etc. Spec rate, integer performance, and that benchmark is a fairly common one. And so we tend to, and this is essentially a 0 to 60 time when it comes to processors. So as you can see here on the right hand side, the single socket AMD EPYC performance, the spec int rates that you see on the right, versus on the left hand side the Intel Xeon product stack. And you can see there a single socket AMD EPYC will pretty much outperform by 2x the highest priced but also the highest performing Platinum processor on the left hand side. And obviously the same picture looks very close to this when you compare 2-socket versus 2-socket. And also if you add 2 of those stacks on the left hand side, you pretty much get the same performance. 1-socket AMD EPYC versus 2 Intel processors, same performance, but obviously half the cost from a processor perspective. So again, a very compelling message. The spec int figures are available for you to actually see, obviously on the spec int industry webpage, but on the AMD.com webpage, we also have comparison charts and a tool which enables you to actually see what the equivalent processor would be to the Intel processor that perhaps your customer's buying today. Okay, and next slide, please. So the other part of this presentation was really to provide you with some confidence that AMD EPYC is very strong today. We've got significant momentum growing, and these 4 quadrants hopefully support that point. So first of all, top left-hand corner, high performance computing. AMD EPYC has been realized by many customers that is very, very strong from a high performance computing perspective. Now, obviously, the area in which we deal with and you guys deal with is not necessarily in high performance computing, but again, it just suggests and confirms that many customers are moving to AMD EPYC because of the performance benefits that it provides. And this is a win that HP/Cray won recently with the Lawrence Livermore National Lab, Al Capitan. This is going to be the supercomputer that is delivered around early 2023. So again, another reason why AMD EPYC and AMD is going to be around for some time in the data center. And this is supporting the US nuclear deterrent strategy. So again, a very, very important and critical solution. This particular solution will be higher performing than the top 200 supercomputers that exist today. So that just gives you an impression of the performance that will provide. And AMD has been winning the majority, I would say, of the high performance computing deals across Europe, across worldwide. Top right hand corner, cloud computing. Again, everyone's talking about hybrid IT. Obviously, we're selling infrastructure. So obviously, this doesn't necessarily relate to infrastructure that's sold to customers. However, customers are buying cloud computing as well as infrastructure on premise as well. So I wanted to obviously show that we do have cloud instances with a top tier cloud providers. So customers again can also utilize AMD from a cloud perspective, but also the infrastructure that they're buying as well. And you can see there some of the performance benefits that customers can get using those instances from a Docker container perspective or virtual machines is very, very significant. Bottom left-hand corner, telco and infrastructure. The telco market is adopting AMD EPYC because of the features that you're seeing. So HP has gone to Gen10 Plus. That's supporting the latest and greatest PCI Gen 4 technology, but also the faster memory speeds as well, and the telco industry, and anything software defined. And this is another reason why the Simplicity 325 is extremely strong as well, because it provides the performance that it requires. And to that point, really, since we launched the 2nd generation Rome processor, we have achieved with our OEM partners over 140 world records, many of which are based on workloads as well. And I know HP has got the lion's share, or certainly a good majority of those world records as well. Next slide, please. This just gives you an overview of some of the world records that we've actually achieved based on workloads. No, not every one of these workloads will be applicable, obviously, to SMB or mid-market. But again, it just shows you the myriad of different workloads that are supported by AMD EPYC. And if you look at VMark, VMmark, for example, with vSAN, or SpecVirt, again, many of your customers, I'm sure, are deploying virtualization. And as you can see there, the AMD EPYC processors, although these are very high bin, high frequency processors, it shows that the AMD EPYC is extremely strong. And every customer that has been doing a proof of concept or benchmarking, they found similar results as well. And next slide, please. And this goes back to the confidence thing. So I wanted to address that because, again, we do get asked the question, okay, you pulled out the market, but is AMD going to be in the long term? I can absolutely categorically say, yes, we are. This is a public-facing roadmap, which shows the 4th generation going out to 2022. So we're currently on Zen 2, which is our 2nd generation Rome named or code-named processor, which is based on 7 nanometer. We'll be moving to Milan, which is 3rd generation, over the next 12 months, and then move into Zen 4, which is our Genoa. And Genoa is the platform that's, that the El Capitan high performance computing supercomputer is based upon. So again, rest assured, we've got a very, very solid roadmap. Obviously, our roadmap goes beyond 2022 as well, but I wanted to provide that confidence, that assurance that we will be in the data center for many, many years. But again, I can show a roadmap, but again, the industry has changed. So if you can share the next slide, please. I think this shows the foundry process technology, how it's evolved since 2012 and how it's progressing. And as you can see, certainly early 2012, etc., our foundry essentially was behind the curve. One of the reasons why we had to pull out the market because AMD didn't have a competitive solution. So the one strategic decision that AMD made was to actually sell its foundry to global foundries and also partner with the best. And so we're partnering with the best in the industry today, the semiconductor industry today. And we're partnering with global foundries, but also TSMC. So TSMC is one of the largest semiconductor manufacturing companies in the world. They've moved to 7 nanometer today. So on the left-hand side, you can see for the first time really in AMD's history that we've actually taken the lead from a process technology perspective. Why does 7 nanometer matter? Obviously, the smaller the die, the more components you can put in. But I think more importantly, the power consumed is much lower as well. So you can provide much better performance per watt compared to those that are not on that 7 nanometer technology. So as you can see there, we can see that we're going to have a lead for a few years for the foreseeable future. And on the right-hand side, as I said, relative performance per watt is also superior as well. So perhaps in the past, customers have actually said, well, you know, TDP performance per watt's not great, but as you can see here, that technology we have today is of leadership position. And the second point, if you can move to the next slide, is around the leadership in packaging. So this is, if you like, the way in which our technology has evolved over the last few years. So high bandwidth memory was the first innovation that we brought to market in 2015, which was based on our GPU technology. We've now gone to this multi-chip module with Naples in 2017. And again, as I said, in Rome, for Rome last year, 2019, for the 2nd generation EPYC, we moved to a chiplet technology. And why is chiplet technology important? Again, it's much easier to produce chiplets than a very large monolithic die. That provides superior yield capability, but also provides much more cost efficiency as well. And again, with that 2.5 or 2D technology that we've introduced with a high bandwidth memory, along with chiplets, we'll be moving to this three-dimensional packaging technology in the future. So again, the packaging leadership that we have, working alongside our foundry partners, will enable AMD to continue that leadership in the market that we have today. So what I want to do was just to give you some assurances that we will be in the market for many years to come, and have that confidence when speaking to customers. And I think that now segue moves on to the next section with Jason. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. I just want to carry that kind of messaging on, if you like, from the confidence in the data center and the roadmap Tony's just delivered. Just before I kind of start on this slide, I just want to remind everybody that, you know, post some questions in the question and answer section, and we will have some time at the end to go through any questions you have. So please do use that. So as far as roadmap goes, if we look back just a couple of years, well, start of 2019, we just had three AMD systems at that time. We had an Apollo 35, the DL325 Gen 10, and the 385 Gen 10. So that was obviously, you know, Naples capable systems, the first generation EPYC processor. But we've had a busy period since then, and going through last year and going through this year, it seems we have launches every month, to be fair. So we launched the Gen 10 Plus systems, and I'll go through the differences between Gen 10 and Gen 10 Plus in the following slides. But we launched the two Gen 10 Plus systems with the new Rome processor in to give the full capability of the Rome processor. We have a SimpliVity box now, so in the HCI space, we have a SimpliVity based on the DL325, which I'll go through. We certified our AMD platforms for the DHCI solutions that we have that you've probably come across. And we've launched, just this last month, we've launched a new Apollo 2000 system for HPC workloads. Again, I'll show you what that looks like and the advantages of the Apollo 2000. And then going, you know, back end of this year, early next year, we'll have the Apollo 6500 Gen 10, very much focused on, you know, high-end HPC, AI, big data, you know, GPU-focused workloads that we can address there with the AMD processor in it. And it'll carry on. You heard Tony talk about Milan and Genoa coming out over the next couple of years. Keep your eyes peeled. Early for first half of next year, we'll have a whole host of new platforms coming out based on those new Milan and Genoa processors that Tony's mentioned. So we can move to the next slide, Sam, please. So this is the current lineup. I'll just quickly talk through these. As far as AMD portfolio goes from HPE. So we have top left here, the DL385, both the Gen 10 and Gen 10 Plus. And again, I'll talk through the differences in a second. So that's a 2U box, 2 socket capable, so 2 processor capable, very high performance, great storage capability. If you want a denser solution, the one below it, the DL325, is a 1U solution. And it's a single socket box. It's the only single socket box we do in the HPE rack mount portfolio, and obviously it's based on AMD. So anything that ends in a 5 is our AMD in our AMD portfolio. So that's available in Gen 10 and Gen 10 Plus as well. And then we've got the SimpliVity box I've already mentioned, which is based on our DL325 form factor, obviously with the SimpliVity software packaged on top of that as an appliance. And then the new member of the family over the right hand side here is the Apollo 2000, which is a very dense, it's 2U form factor, but you can get 4 compute nodes in there. So the compute nodes are known as the XL225, and again they're based on the Gen 10 Plus architecture, so the Rome 64 core processor SKUs that are available. So, and as it says there, some more coming obviously through the back end of this year and then going into next year and obviously the year after that. If we go to the next slide, please, Sam. So I just want to talk about kind of the architecture, and Tony's covered most of this, but just to kind of put it on a graphic, on a slide, if you like. It's all about balancing a server. It's all around, you know, if you have a great processor like the AMD processor and you can get right up to 64 cores in the processor, then it's balancing that out across the memory and the I/O subsystem, you know, the disks and the network cards. And the AMD Rome processor really does deliver across all those subsystems in the server. So we've got obviously up to 64 core capable, but we've also taken the memory channels up. So in our Gen 10 Plus systems, we have in our Gen 10 and Gen 10 Plus systems, we have 8 memory channels available. 2 more memory channels than we do have in our Intel systems. The memory capacity goes up as well, so 4 terabyte capable in the 2 systems. So we can obviously take the memory capacities up, but also the speed of the memory. So it goes up to 3200, much higher memory speeds, and obviously more bandwidth available in the memory channels as well. On the I/O side, lots of PCI lanes available to us, so 128 PCI lanes available, both in either Gen 3 in the Gen 10 systems we have, so Generation 3 PCI, or full bandwidth PCI Generation 4, so double the bandwidth in PCI Generation 4. So that really takes the throughput up if you're talking to NVMe drives or out to 25 gig and 50 gig Ethernet cards and GPUs. So great balance of performance across the huge performance gains over what we've had previously and what we've got in our Intel platforms. And as you heard from Tony there, that translates into all the world records that they have, which we'll go on to in a second. So Sam, if you just move to the next slide, please. So I just want to describe and make it clear really why Gen 10 and why Gen 10 Plus. When Rome came out last year, so the new Rome 2nd generation EPYC processor came out, it came with the whole host of features I've just spoke about, not just the 64 cores, but the faster memory DIMMs, the PCI Generation 4 uplift, so the double the bandwidth on the I/O. But it was also socket compatible with our existing platforms, so our current, then current Gen 10 DL325 and 385. So the green column there is our Gen 10 systems. So if you want something that is price optimized, you don't really need the true performance, but you've still got the options of going right through all the SKUs up to 64 core. But the customer is happy, it's an SMB customer, or the workload doesn't really warrant the higher levels of performance, then you can go with our Gen 10 platforms, but still use the Rome processor. But then we brought out the Gen 10 Plus, so we do have the option of going full feature capable with the faster memory DIMMs and the full I/O upgrade and double the performance on the I/O side. So we do have those 2 options available. So when you're talking DL325 and DL385, you can either go Gen 10, which is still available, will be through to next year, or you can go Gen 10 Plus and get the full feature benefits. Next slide, please, Sam. From a workload perspective, I just want you to keep these 5 workloads in mind. These are really where our AMD platforms play really well. And it's obviously, it'll be areas that you guys are talking to your customers about, I'm sure, on mostly a daily basis. But obviously the key one is virtualization. You're probably not talking to any customer that isn't looking at some form of virtualization in their data center. So Tony's mentioned it a few times as well, and I'll talk about the kind of the world records that we have. But the increase in core count that we have, the capabilities just drop to 1 socket and save on licensing costs. I'll go through this in a second. But we have obviously a huge potential to increase the virtual machine density on servers using the AMD platforms. So that is a really key area for us. Software defined storage, I've not really mentioned this, but on our DL325 offering, our 1U single socket server, we do have 3 different chassis depths. So the length of the chassis that's available. The Gen 10 is the shortest. When you move to Gen 10 Plus, it's a little bit longer, but you can get double the amount of drives in there. You can get up to 20 small form factor drives in there. If you move up again, we do an even longer chassis depth. You can get up to 24 small form factor drives in there. So great for, you know, the core to drive density that you might want in a software-defined storage application or workload. Really plays well in that area. So we can get a large amount of storage in there to a large core count capacity, but in a one use system. So it's doing really well in that workload area. And then of course areas like big data and high performance computing, where an increase in core count and high I/O bandwidth capable systems obviously play really well in those areas. So it's obvious in the HPC area that we play really well there. And obviously the other area is telecommunications. So the high-speed CPU cores that we have, the balance of the connectivity out. You know, I mentioned 25 gig and 50 gig Ethernet capable. Obviously 100 gig and 200 gig coming down the line. That balance of architecture that I mentioned becomes really important in those kind of areas. So those are the kind of 5 workloads that I want you to bear in mind. But obviously, as Tony's mentioned, the vast majority of data center workloads play really well on an AMD platform. So we've moved to the next slide, please. Sam, thank you. So I just wanted to mention IQUOTE. I'm sure you guys on the phone will be familiar with IQUOTE for checking inventory and putting configurations together. We do have AMD banners on there that when you click on it, you do actually get a pre-populated configuration of a DL325, but obviously all our other systems are in there as well. But the pre-population comes with the 7302 processor in there, a single processor because it's a 325, with an amount of memory in there, 16 gig of RAM. And it just gets you started on our 325 platform. And if we just move to the next slide, I just want to point out some of the kind of benefits and differentiation we've got if you're looking at current Intel platforms like the DL360, for example, to a 325. Quick comparison here based on West Coast suggested reseller buy price. On the left-hand side there, we've got the Xeon 4210R, the refresh, which is a 10-core processor. If you look at that in comparison to a single processor, 16-core AMD processor in our DL325, you can see that the price is pretty much the same. But if you look at the performance there, the performance difference from the Intel 10-core to the AMD 16-core, 110% better integer performance for roughly the same price of hardware. So if we move to the next slide, I just want to, there's not many customers buying a single processor Intel server, DL367, they usually buy 2. So if you put 2 of those 4210 refresh processors in a DL360, compare that, so that's 20 cores in total, compare that against a 16-core single socket, you can see that we are cheaper still on the hardware, because obviously you're not paying for that second processor in there, you're just getting the single socket in the 325, but for roughly the same performance. So you're getting the same performance out of a single socket as you do out of 2 Intel Xeon. And that's just the hardware. If you take away the fact that you, on the AMD 325, you only need to buy 1 vSphere license because it's a single socket system, as opposed to 2 vSphere license, then it's a huge advantage on the price, because obviously vSphere licenses aren't cheap, as we know. So the other thing to bear in mind, that's just VMware comparison. Microsoft's licensing caps at 16 cores. So obviously, if you're going for the DL360 with 2 10 cores in it, your 20 cores, you're having to start looking at extra licenses, which again takes the price up. 16 core on a 325 sits nicely within that 16 core cap from Microsoft. So you don't have to buy those additional licenses. So a great comparison there, just to kind of highlight the benefits and the differentiation between the two platforms. Can we go on to the next slide? Please, Sam, thank you. So I've spoken a lot about virtualization. I've shown you the kind of comparisons in cost and licensing benefits of going to single core. We've got the #1 benchmark, as you'd expect, from SpecInt. So the SpecVirt benchmark for single socket systems, we hold that with the DL325 Gen10 Plus system. If you look at the graph on the right of this slide here, you can see the huge performance gain we've got over the second in the table there, which is a Lenovo ThinkSystem. And we've even beat our original Gen10 system there that's in third place. So huge performance gains, huge benchmark result for us there for our Gen10 Plus system. If you go to the next slide, Sam, please. This is also, we also have the benchmark world records for the 2-socket system, so the 385 from SpecInt. So if you look at the charts on the left of this slide here, both on the performance, the sheer performance, we have that with the 385, but also the price performance. So how much does it cost per VM to run on a virtualization platform? So we also have that. We're not just the most performant system out there with the 385, but we're the cheapest for running VMs on that system as well. So right from the bottom SMB single socket save on licensing system with the 325, you can scale right up using the 385 as well of its sheer performance hereafter, but at a much better price point. If we go on to the next slide, please. I just want to talk, virtualization in general. I just wanted to go through, we have a complete HCI portfolio, huge talking point at the moment in the industry around what we're doing with HCI. Right from aggregated, dense platforms like our SimpliVity box. I've got a slide on that coming up next, but also our partnership with Nutanix to deliver the DX appliance. We've got a 385 coming out the second half of this year, and it's certified. The 325 is certified for the Nutanix software as well. But if your customers, what we're seeing a big growth at the moment, if your customers are talking about disaggregated HCI, so they don't want the lock-in of an appliance system as such with the aggregated appliance. We do DHCI, so disaggregated hyperconverged infrastructure. So in the middle there, we've now got 325 and 385 certified on the version 2, the next generation of our DHCI platforms out there, which is great for customers that, as I say, don't want that lock-in, want the separate servers and storage capability based on Nimble. So look out for those AMD platforms in that DHCI solution as well. But right through to our partnerships and certification on Azure Stack and VMware vSAN. So if they're just looking for that kind of do-it-yourself software-defined storage I've mentioned, then obviously our platforms are in there. 325 and 385 are in there if you just want to, the customers just want to lay their software-defined storage platforms on there. So we've got a complete portfolio there of HCI. It's all about partnership and choice and whatever's driving the markets at the moment. We've got a solution out there. If you just press for the next button. What I really wanted to bring out is the InfoSight control over all these. If you've not come across InfoSight technology, then I would strongly suggest getting to grips with what Insight can deliver our customers, because that is a real key differentiator for HPE out there. It brings artificial intelligence to the management of our systems. It manages right across our portfolio, both on our servers and our storage platforms. It uses a huge data lake of analytics to bring predictive analysis to our platforms, so customers can understand the health of the environment, but it also can warn them of potential problems out there. Is there a problem with particular software stack and firmware that they have on their system that we've learned from other customers that we can now inform the rest of our customer base out there? So it's a huge artificial intelligence based management system that our customers can take advantage of, free of charge, by the way, as well. We don't charge for that InfoSight package. So if you're not leading your discussions with your customers with InfoSight, then you're missing a big trick there. You should be going out and telling your customers what they can get, the benefits they can get from InfoSight. So it's not an InfoSight presentation, so let's move on, Sam, to the next slide, please. So I just want to quickly mention the SimpliVity. I've mentioned it a couple of times already. So it's based on the DL325, and the idea behind this is single socket, obviously, as I've mentioned, but it's got the SimpliVity software stack on top to really give that full stack of features that you expect from SimpliVity. It doesn't have the accelerator card in, it's 100% software optimized, but obviously it's got the benefit of going right up to 64 cores of performance from the processor. So, you know, edge type locations, robo, VDI type applications, small business customers, you know, retail outlets that want kind of those at the edge deployments of virtualization, HCI type performance. This is a great box for those guys. If we move on to the next slide, our category team within HP have been putting together a package solution for our customers. You know, we're in unprecedented times at the moment where customers are looking for ways to bring differentiation to themselves and how they can re-engineer the way they bring services to their customers. So what we've done is we've packaged up a bundle that hopefully you may have heard of, but if not, we can send out the details to you guys. But if you look at the picture on the left of this slide here, it's our SimpliVity 325 node, and you can go from 1 up to 3 depending on, you know, what size workload you want to deliver and how many users you're going to have connecting to it. But it's packaged in with a switch, which you can choose to have or not. You have a switch in there by default and a UPS in there. So you've really got a data center in a box there in a cabinet that can be wall mounted, ready to go out the factory, that customers can simply deploy out to either remote offices or quickly set up VDI because they've got everybody working from home, or they want to have more people working from home. So a really topical way of getting a fast SMB type solution out to your customers. So yeah, get in touch if you like that, and we can obviously set up you know, conversations and get the details out to you for this particular solution. So next slide, please, Sam. I also wanted to mention the Apollo 2000 because it's our newest platform for AMD based servers that we have out there. So this is for HPC predominantly, but it can also just be used for standard virtualization. If you've got customers that want a dense, high density solution for virtualization, but they don't want to go down a Blades route or a Synergy route, then this is a great offering for them. So it's 2U high chassis, but with 4 compute nodes in there. So these are 2 socket, 4 nodes in a 2U system. So for density wise, it's unbeaten really on our portfolio. It's based on either Rome now. It's shipping now with our Rome, and obviously next year we'll get the refresh with Milan that Tony spoke about. But it gets the full Rome benefits of, you know, fast memory, 8 channels out to memory, and the PCI Generation 4 and our NVMe support. And you can get it in 3 chassis options there, either diskless or 8 small form factor drives, or 24 up to 24 drives. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention in case you weren't aware of that Apollo 2000, because it's relatively new out there. Next slide, please. I've mentioned world records, and Tony's mentioned world records quite a lot. He mentioned the 140 plus world records they've got out there. The lion's share of those is ours. As you can see there, we're currently at 41. This changes regularly, to be honest. Testing goes on constantly as new processors come out, new platforms come out. But I just wanted to bring out a couple of things. Firstly, that we've got quite a spread of benchmarks out there, world records out there, against things like cloud and virtualization that we spoke about. I've mentioned 2 of them on our single socket and 2 socket performance. But, you know, SDI and server-side Java and software-defined infrastructure. So I keep using acronyms, but big data and analytics that we've spoke about as well. And more importantly, and this is important, obviously, that Tony mentioned around the, you know, shrinking the die size down to 7 nanometer, the energy efficient capability as well that brings us, and how we can go after those world records for energy efficiency. As I say, this changes quite a lot, but what we've done from HPE is obviously when we submit systems for this testing, we have our engineers working non-stop to try and make it as efficient and capable as we can for that particular workload, because we want the world record. The great news is, from a customer perspective, they can go into the BIOS of the system, and we have 12 profiles in there that they can choose, and then the system will optimize itself for those particular workloads. So they're simple profiles. These are documented, so the customers can have a look through and see which one suits their particular workload needs best. And then they go into the BIOS, they choose the particular workload. So for example, virtualization, it's an obvious one. Once you choose that, it sets all the settings on the server, all the BIOS settings and array controller settings to optimize it for that particular workload. So all the great stuff that our engineers do, so we get all these world records, our customers can easily choose and do. It's a great differentiator for us in our system. So just bear that one in mind as well when you're talking to customers. Next slide, please, Sam. So, just being honest about the competitive situation we've got out there. You guys probably know that we have strong competition from the guys at the top of this slide here. They may have more platforms out there at the moment. So if you're looking at, obviously it's complexities around 1U or 2U single socket or 2 socket. I've just gone through our portfolio. So obviously we've got 325 single socket, 385 2 socket, and the 2000 system. Apollo 2000 system I spoke about, but we also mentioned the kind of roadmap stuff, the Milan stuff that's coming out next year, so keep your eyes peeled for that. So we may not have all the form factors out there at the moment, but if you look at the bottom half of this slide, the technical specifications, we're unrivaled in the industry for bringing the true feature benefits of AMD and EPYC and the Rome processor out to our customers. So whether you're looking for PCI Generation 4 or U.2 NVMe or U.3 NVMe, or the number of NVMe drives we can get in a 1U system, or the workload matching I've just spoke about, or even the memory speeds and the SKU support, we can't be matched across the industry with bringing all the features, the full feature capability out to our customers. So I just wanted to kind of bring that as an honest display of where we are at the moment in the industry. Next slide, please, Sam.
5 minutes, Jason.
Oh, wow, I've been talking for a lot. So I'm down to my last couple of slides. I just wanted to talk about one other thing that is a real benefit for us, a real differentiator for us, and that's the security side. So Tony mentioned security in the processor. So just very quickly, you may be aware, on our systems we have the ILO, which is a piece of silicon. It's a chip on the system board that allows remote access to our systems. You can fully control our systems using a remote access connection to our servers, and that's called the ILO. And in the ILO is an embedded fingerprint. So when you switch the ILO on, it goes and checks itself, checks its own firmware, checks the BIOS of the server, just to authenticate that it is a trusted piece of firmware that's on there, because hackers are moving from attacking the operating system applications to moving into the hardware. If it's easier to get into the hardware, then they can hide a bit of malicious code inside the firmware. So we've got the ILO that checks through our system. The great thing is the AMD EPYC processor also has some secure technology in there. So it's got an ARM chip in there that is purely focused on the security of the chip. The nice thing is HPE and AMD have worked together, and we do an interlock between those two technologies. So the ILO checks its own firmware and then goes out and does a handshake with the AMD processor just to verify that we are genuine bits of firmware there. And then they both check the BIOS, and then we go on and we allow the server to boot and what have you. So it's a huge advantage for us. If customers are worried about security, if they're moving more servers towards the edge, then they're open, they're vulnerable, and they're no longer locked in a data center, so they may be vulnerable to attack. So just be sure that if you're buying a HPE server with an AMD processor in it, it's one of the most secure, if not the most secure servers out there. And you can see that you can read for yourself the quote on the side there from Patrick Moorhead from More Insights and Strategies, that it's unprecedented in the industry. Next slide, please, Sam. Just to that point, Marsh, who offer cyber attack insurance, are a broker. They advertised out for secure technologies in the industry, and they analysed those and with their underwriters that you see on the slide here, to verify what was the most secure products out there in the industry as far as IT was concerned. 150 suppliers, vendors submitted their products. They chose the top 15 to include in their offering for offering cyber insurance out there. There's only one hardware vendor on there, and that's HPE, and that's because of the ILO that I just mentioned about the benefits of the security in the hardware that that we can deliver to our customers. And you can see in the Marsh press release on the right hand side there that it's close to a perfect solution as far as securing the hardware goes. And the benefit of that is if you've got customers that are looking for insurance against cyber attack, then they can, you know, negotiate better rates if they're delivering it with a HPE rack mount server with ILO in it and the AMD processor in it. Next slide, please. Lots of awards across our portfolio. CRN Product of the Year, 2 years on the trot there for 2018 and 19 on the 325. So the industry really love our portfolio out there, and we get a lot of awards from it. I just want to wrap up now to leave room for questions. So next slide, please, Sam. I just wanted to bring to your attention some of the things you can utilize as a partner of ours. There's the buy and try program that you're probably already familiar with, and the cashback offer from Microsoft Windows Server 2019 if you're buying an AMD based system. There's also the ProLiant Server trade-in promotion that you no doubt be aware of across our platforms. New one coming in the middle at the bottom here is an AMD pilot program from Microsoft. What they're basically doing is capping the licenses at 32 cores. So you can buy a 64 core, so 48 or 64 core system from us, but they only have to buy the Windows Server license up to 32 cores. So great offering there from Microsoft that's been launched on August the 3rd, so keep an eye out for that. We've also got an AMD channel partner kit that's just launched, and that's on PS now, so keep an eye out for that. I'm going to push it out through our PBMs, so hopefully push it out to you guys so you can utilize some of the stuff that's available in that channel partner kit for you to advertise our systems out to your customers. And that's pretty much it. Next slide, Sam, just a kind of final slide, literally just to wrap up, 30 seconds. I've mentioned all the security stuff, that it does make AMD platforms less vulnerable to security breaches. These side channel attacks you'll have heard of in the press, they are less vulnerable than the Intel-based systems we've got out there, and you can see that Marsh are capitalizing on that with insurance based on our systems. As far as price performance goes, we're unrivaled in the industry for bringing the best price performance to our customers. And obviously you can take benefits of the Microsoft licensing, the single socket VMware licensing to really drive home the price benefits and license cost savings to your customers. We've talked a lot about the roadmap. We're in it for the long haul here. You can see the investment we're making right across the portfolio as far as AMD platforms go, and that'll carry on in the next couple of years with a whole host of new platforms coming out across our rack mount and Apollo ranges. And what we're doing, rather than just pushing platforms out like some of our competitors are doing, we're choosing exactly the right key workloads that customers are focused on at the moment. The HCI type workloads, the Apollo HPC workloads, for example. There's a lot of focus going into, let's just not push everything out, let's make sure we're bringing the right platform out for our customers. So that's pretty much it. Last slide, Sam, please, just with our contact details on. We can open it up to any questions for the last 3 or 4 minutes that we have.